Black has the new problem of the queen being in danger. And you might be throwing tomatoes at your screen saying, Funmaster Mike, you're an old man, you missed queen e4. In a previous ChessKid video, I showed you the Caro-Kann gone wrong, but that's not fair to Caro-Kann players because sometimes it goes right. In fact, even Gotham Chess uses the Caro a lot. I don't want him to get mad at me. So let's take a look at a very typical Caro-Kann win. Now, after c6 played on the first move, Black almost always plays d5 on the second move. Again, White has a big choice, just like in our previous video. White decided to play knight c3, and after captures and captures, I want to leave you with one main idea from this video. In the Caro-Kann, in this pawn structure, Black loves being able to target this pawn. It's always on the half-open file, and Black almost always controls the square in front of it, not letting that pawn advance. In fact, that's going to be a major theme of this game. Black going after that d4 pawn. So Black develops the bishop. This is all very standard stuff. Now White plays f4, which is really aggressive, threatening to trap the bishop. But after e6, that fits into Black's plans anyway, because it helps this bishop come out, and it also helps further cement the fact that this pawn is not going to be able to move, and a pawn that has concrete boots on is much easier to target because it can't move. So knight f3, knight f6, knight to e5. And Black is not that concerned about losing the bishop there, because if Black loses the light squared bishop, Black has so many other pawns on light squares that you can usually offset that. You're not going to have weak light squares. So pawn a6, putting even more stuff on light squares. Bishop to c4. There's no weird sacrifice on e6 or anything, so Black just continues developing. We have castles and castles, and now White strikes at the king side with f5. Of course, Black must take, and after knight takes, this knight is a bit strong, so Black decided to get rid of it, and after takes, now Black does what all the Caro players do. Black goes after this weak d4 pawn. And the way to do that is to start with c5. Okay, after c5, obviously you can't take because that's an oopsie daisy and I have to end my YouTube video early. So White played the move c3, and then b5, advancing even more on the queen side. Bishop to b3, we had a quick captures, and this is what all Caro-Kann players love, the targeting of the d pawn. Black starts out with queen b6, which pins the pawn to the king. Now, technically, White had a really strong move here, which was not found. White can sometimes offset the weakness of this pawn with a lot of space advantage, and White missed the idea of queen f3. Now, it doesn't win the game right away, but it forces this rook to make a basically meaningless little defensive move, and it puts the queen and rook on a very strong battery with a lot of stuff bearing down on f7. The reason this move was probably missed is because White probably didn't see that after losing the pawn with check, bishop to e3 wins for White, because this rook is still in danger, and that's why you don't want to enter an attack with an attack. But now Black has the new problem of the queen being in danger. And you might be throwing tomatoes at your screen saying, Funmaster Mike, you're an old man, you missed queen e4. Actually, I didn't. In fact, there are several moves that win for White. One is to take, and after knight takes, you've got a triple attack on f7. You can take that with whatever you feel like. Probably rook takes is best. Or an even better move, in my eyes, is to play this nice little move, rook takes knight, removing the defender of the queen. And if you try playing queen takes, then the rook saves itself. And if you count the material, Black has lost a piece. So we need to go back. After queen b6, instead of that very hard line to find, White decided to play bishop to g5, knight c6, targeting the weak pawn. The king decides to run over to h1, and in this position, you could just take right away. Knight takes d4, there's nothing wrong with this move, but instead, why not attack it a third time? Okay, we had bishop takes, queen h5, and you might think, hey, that's a mistake, because pawn to g6 forks the queen and the rook. But don't forget about this annoying light squared bishop. White has one and we don't. Knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes is actually forced mate when the bishop moves. White can take on f7 and be totally winning, but technically the best move is rook h5, and mate is coming on the next turn, queen h7. Even if you play rook to e8, then queen takes f7 would be mate. So if we go back, instead of g6 right away, Black traded knights first to reduce some of the attackers on g6. And then after pawn takes, then g6. Now White is actually not lost, because White does have this move, queen to g4, to pin the pawn. But then Black saves the bishop. Now both sides lose a pawn here. In this position, if the rook simply moves back, Black will be the only one to win a pawn. Black will have an extra pawn in the endgame. So White played the correct rook takes f7, and after rook takes, then White gets the rook back with rook to f1. And you can't really guard it with rook f8, because then queen to d7 would be a triple attack on this pinned rook. So black played the correct king h8, rook takes, and now instead of just taking this pawn back right away, bishop takes e5, which is okay, queen to e3 was a much stronger move in this position, and there's all kinds of back rank checkmates being threatened. So the rook ran back to f1. Now with best play, maybe it should be a draw, but clearly black is better, because after queen takes, now this pawn is definitely lost. It's being double attacked. And also, I would argue that the bishop here is aiming at a bunch of nothing, and the queen and the bishop are about to actually team up after a big mistake by white. So we had bishop to f7, rook to f8 to pin the bishop, and now comes arguably the losing move, pawn to h4. Now that is meant to get rid of any kind of back rank mate, and also the idea of playing h5, trying to go on the aggressive, but queen to e7 is a very annoying double attack. This bishop must be defended. It is pinned. It can't go back to c4 because of pawn takes, and this pawn is targeted. So when white plays queen f4 trying to guard everything, the queen is overworked and black wins with rook takes f7. As I say many times, the analysis engine is just wrong. It does say rook takes f7 is good for black, but it says black is only up by about one pawn, when in fact any strong player like you can see it just leads to a forced winning endgame, because I'm sure you've watched my videos on old man chess and simplification. After rook takes, you only have one move, which is a take. After queen takes, your king has to move the g1. After bishop check, you have to block with the rook. After queen takes, you have to take back. And after bishop takes, you have to take. And I don't care what the computer says. This should be like minus 1,000, not minus 1.3, as my screen is showing. This is totally winning for black, because black can make a pass pawn 2 against 1. That pawn will serve as a decoy, and our king will walk into the position and win both of these pawns eventually. The game did continue for a few more moves, but it is an easily winning endgame for black. That is how the Caro-Kann is played, and maybe you should add it to your opening repertoire.